Ever wonder what happens after your customer clicks on a phishing email and winds up on a website that looks and feels exactly like your website, but is in fact fake? It's called website spoofing. And well, lots of things, bad things happen. The financial destruction affects the customer, but it also affects you and your brand that's being impersonated. Did you know that the actual brands like yours and like credit unions and banks are often liable for the damages that this social engineering tactic causes? In this video, we explore ways to prevent account takeovers and some innovative ways to reduce website spoofing. Gideon Hassam joins us to discuss a new way that they've created that can alert you in real time that your customers are on a site that is impersonating your website. Bottom line, it's excellent for brands, and it's a great way how to reduce cyber risk from website spoofing. So join us behind the scenes. This is the story of Gideon Hassam and innovative ways to reduce website spoofing. Come join us as we dive deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today, interviewing top technology leaders from around the world and sharing true cybercrime stories to raise awareness. From the creators of Vigilance, the newest global technology newsletter translating cyber news into business language we all understand. So please help us keep this going by subscribing for free to our YouTube channel and downloading our podcast episodes on Apple and Spotify so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. Well, welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies. We are here with a really unique conversation about a threat vector that we don't always and routinely talk about. We're joined by co-founder, COO, and CSM at Memsico, and they protect organizations and the organization's brands from the cybercrime threats like brand jacking and website spoofing. And it has a really impactful way and a very unique approach to helping organizations that get attacked and that have a lot of liabilities otherwise if they don't address this threat vector. So Gideon Hassam, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, David. I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah, let's jump right in. Well, you know, it's really interesting because the statistics are astounding. There's approximately 73% of consumers believe that it's the brand, the business that they believe that they're doing business with, even though fraud has happened and they're doing business with cyber criminals, right? But still 73% of consumers believe it's the brand's responsibility to prevent incidents like that, like web spoofing. We're going to get into what that is in just a second. And 47% of consumers said they're less likely to accept calls or texts from spoofed brands. And 50% of cybercrime in the US stems from brand impersonation. There's another statistic that I found where 81% of consumers would stop engaging with a legitimate brand after an attack with a spoofed brand. So those are, at the end of the day, what that means is when an organization works very, very hard over decades, sometimes, right? Oftentimes, to establish their brand, their online presence, their in-person presence, their in-store presence, whatever it might be. And their brand gets tarnished, their reputation gets harmed through things called brand jacking, website spoofing. And Memsico is seeking to help those organizations. So let's define terms, if you don't mind. So what is website spoofing? Just if you can explain that.
Yeah,
And then I want everybody to hear kind of your origin story and how you got started in this.
yeah. All right. Before I'm jumping into the website spoofing and terms, let me just say, or maybe react to the statistic that you share with us. So basically, the let's say the common denominator of all this is basically digital trust, right? And this is the issue practically, because when it comes on the digital world, if you don't trust things like text message, if you don't trust your email, or you don't trust the brand that you associate with, then we have a problem. And this problem is getting more and more, I would say, severe, especially since COVID came to the world. Because at that time, up until COVID, people used to get to the car, drive to the office, work from the office, and so on. But since COVID came to the world, things have, been changed, and we were required to remotely.
Right.
And this opens huge opportunity, kind of opportunity for the bad actors, because now everything is need to be accessible remote. Even the internal system, the internal application of the organization, they need to be opened to the internet for remote access. So that was basically the trigger, the main trigger. And ever since, the entire world got used to work hybrid, and people not really going to the office every day now. So this is becoming kind of a pandemic issue in a way that, for the bad actors, this is a great, great opportunity to exploit, to compromise, and trick people, uh, especially for account takeover. So going back to your questions regarding spoofing and how this impacts businesses. So spoofing is it's a kind of a general term for, impersonation. Because if
Right.
I can impersonate your website, I'm spoofing your site. Now there are
Correct.
different techniques how to do this, right? One of the techniques is that I simply going to clone your site, okay? Cloning your site, having kind of a snapshot of a page, HTML page, or the entire site on my machine now, this is a clone. So I took a snapshot. I have a copy now. I can maybe, uh, customize this, change few things, and publish this as a phishing attack.
Right.
There are tools that do this online, because as opposed to cloning, maybe I did a clone a month ago and I have a copy on my machine that I'm using now. But there are spoofing tools that doing this action on the fly. So they
In
will bring
in
the
almost
copy.
real time. In real time.
Exactly, exactly. So
And they
they will
sell
do
them on the
this.
dark web.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So not only that, we tend to think that it was kind of a professional job for hackers to do. But nowadays, there are kits, phishing kits that you can obtain on the different dark web, darknet, or others, that allows you basically in a click on a button to generate a phishing attack on any brand you want. And
Right.
basically, what it does, this kit is doing everything I said, but automatically. It will replicate the website, it will strip out things, change few things, and it's up and running. So,
So in this scenario, you have ABC Company and ABC.com, and somebody else is making something that looks exactly like ABC.com. They're going to
mhm,
send out hundreds of thousands of emails with the skill of enticing people
mhm,
through threat or loss aversion, meaning if you don't do this, something bad is going to happen, with a sense of urgency, get people to click on that. That will redirect them to the spoofed site, not to the real site, not to abc.com, but abc.co or abc.
whatever. Yeah.
Whatever, right? But it's going to look exactly like abc.com.
Exactly. And
And then from
that's,
there, when you enter your credentials or you transact business or you buy something from them, they're not going to deliver it. They're just going to take your money.
yeah. So, yeah, apparently, by the way, this is, yet another statistics to share is that more than 50% of the account takeover are based on phishing. So phishing
Yes.
became a method, a platform to trick people, to manipulate people, take their kind of identity or digital identity, and use this for scams and anything else. Um, so yeah, that's basically the problem. Now there are solutions in the market to deal with this. So let me, David, with your permission, maybe I'll jump to what is it out there today to deal with this, okay?
Yeah, please.
And what will make the difference um, with Memsico in place. Let's talk about the life cycle of website impersonation attack. Okay,
Hmm.
so as I said earlier, the attacks start with either cloning or spoofing online. Either way, I have now up and running phishing site, which is, you know, attacking the customers of the bank, as an example. Now, the current solution in the market are related to threat intelligence services.
Right.
So these threat intelligence services, basically what they provide, the example of the bank now, they provide a bank the service of detecting this phishing site, which has a lookalike domain in one hand, or maybe has a lookalike content, right? Both ways, once these threat intelligence companies detect this, and they have scanners and crawlers to look for this,
Right.
once detected, the next step would be to start the takedown, right? Because ultimately we need to take it down. Otherwise, it's still attacking, right?
Correct.
So the process of takedown might take hours, days, weeks,
It can take a while.
sometimes
Right.
even a while, right? Um, and then people tend to think that once this impostor site was taken down, the attack is over. We're all good. Apparently, this is not the case because between detection and takedown, there is what we call window of exposure.
Right.
And within this window of exposure, people are still being falling into this trick, to
That's the
this
most
attack.
important time is that window of exposure.
Exactly. So that is one stage. Once the site was taken down, people, as I said, think that the attack is over, but it's not, because from that point, the attacker has a list of credentials that he managed to harvest, right? So now all these credentials that he managed to harvest are in the hand of the attacker. He can now exploit this, compromise these credentials, and use them, or sell them in the dark web. He can trade it, or he can use it. So the attack is not over as long as the credentials are still out there, right?
And
And
can I ask you, when you say credentials, do you mean the credentials of the host of the site, that ABC company, or the credentials of all of the individual like customers that have accounts on that site?
yeah, so we talk about the individuals, right? The customers. Let's take the bank example, right?
Hmm.
So we have a bank website. We have a login to the bank. So
Right.
I, as a customer of the bank, I would log in through the web. I'm the victim. I'm going to be
Right.
lured to get to be
And they're
fished
going to be
later
able
on.
to log in as you
Exactly.
and impersonate you, which has really dire consequences because that is, if they're able to know that password, and because people's habits of reusing passwords are so common, and when you are using reusing a password and you're reusing one for a banking site, that's probably
Hmm.
one of your better ones. And
Hmm.
so then they can go to other banking sites, they can go to retirement accounts, they can go to government accounts, things like that, and they can fully impersonate somebody and they can essentially make them homeless. Maybe because
Exactly.
they are that person. Other than maybe fingerprints, they can totally pay people as you and spend your money.
Exactly.
So the risk is
Exactly.
very high.
The risk is very high, and going back to the life cycle of the attack. So with this two window of exposure, the harvesting part, and later on the usage of this end user credentials, this is something that threat intelligence don't have. They don't
Right.
have a way to detect this, to know who are the end users that were exposed, to know what credentials, user credentials are out there, and so on and so forth. So this is where Memsico come into the play, because we also have takedown services. We also have detection services. We have technology, not only scanners that detect the imposter side in real time and not by scanning the internet. We detect this from the first potential victim that were exposed to this
Right.
only by clicking on the link and getting into this imposter site.
Right.
So, and from that point, and that is basically one of the strengths of Memsico in this respect, is that we provide the bank, in the example of the bank, we provide the bank the full visibility of all the customers of the bank that were exposed to the phishing attack. We give them the names, the locations, when this happens. So if Gideon, as an example, was exposed to phishing attack, the bank will get these details in real time. So this allows the bank, once they know this in real time, that Gideon is in a higher risk than before because he was exposed now. And the bank can take action immediately. They can block my account, they can stop my credit cards, they can do many things just because knowing that I was now turned to a higher risk score than before. So that's one part.
So it actually has even some longer term effects that can be put in play that can, because of that overall risk score, the bank can take additional steps, or the
Exactly.
ABC company. Now that you brought up banks, let me ask you, banks have specific FFIEC and certain other regulatory, depending on where they're located and where they're getting their funds, clearly. um, is this a tool that meets the like the financial institution compliance requirements, meaning there's also the reporting of it that's provided to bank ISOs or information security officers, things like that?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a good point and very relevant point, David. Basically, we comply with three ISO certificates. So it's on the corporate level,
Great.
on the data level, and also on the cloud level. So we
Excellent.
are certified. We're also, by mid of this year, going to have SOC 2 on top of
Excellent.
it.
That's
Um,
great, Gideon. That's
yeah, yeah,
fantastic. I mean,
yeah,
those aren't
yeah,
easy to get. So I mean, that's really
yes,
fantastic. But
yeah.
I mean, clearly banking is one industry. Like there are so many other every industry has an online presence. Every industry could benefit by being aware and being able to address this in real time.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
that's really key.
Yeah. And moreover, I think that maybe this is speaking about banks now. So one of the things that we've seen during 2023 and even more this year is that there are more regulations coming into the financial industry that require banks and other institutes to compensate the customers uh, on any phishing attack. So if I'm a customer of the bank and I was lured to get into a lookalike domain which look exactly the same as the bank and I was compromised, the
So the
bank
liability may
will
fall on the actual original bank, even though
exactly,
they had nothing to do with it.
exactly,
Wow.
exactly. And I can tell you that, for
That'll
instance, in
be
the UK,
interesting. That'll be
yeah,
debatable, right? I mean, that'll be interesting because I mean, it probably won't be debatable if the regulation gets issued. It's pretty much done, but that's going to be a major challenge, especially if that grows beyond the financial institutions, or if it applies to the umbrella term of financial institutions, right? Because
hmm
that can just that can happen. That could all of a sudden be applicable to wealth management groups or CPA firms or real estate trusts and mortgage banks and the small mortgage brokers. And a
hmm
lot of these are small businesses.
exactly, exactly, and
Well,
the
that's
impact
burdensome.
is
Yeah,
huge. I can tell you that in the UK, for instance, only last year the banks in the UK had to compensate their customers in hundreds of millions of pounds just because of that. So this is a kind of
it's a void.
extending.
That is,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a void. That's at the front lines of cybercrime where it's really happening online. And you're right. I mean, ever since COVID happened, everything is has an online component. Even
online.
when people shop at retail stores now, they don't even though COVID's essentially not a daily issue, people now are so used to the curbside pickup or whatever, they've developed it into their habits where they're
hmm
choosing to shop that way and things. So there's all that online component first, as opposed to I'm just going to run to the store and walk around and pick out what I want.
Exactly,
So culturally, there's been a massive shift.
exactly. And for as far as Mexico, our traditional market is the financial one. Although we have,
Makes sense.
in e-commerce, we have in retail, we have other, educations.
I could see
Any
retail and e-commerce would be big too.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
So and since this regulations that I just mentioned becoming more, let's say, strict regulation in this
hmm,
respect, we're getting more and more customers coming from the financial marketing approaching us just because of that, right? So we have
absolutely.
more, we have big banks in North America, in the UK, and other countries, and that, in many cases, that is the trigger that they kind of approaching us.
Well, and
Um,
and the way that you guys deliver this, is there a watermark that is put on? How does that work? Is there a
yeah,
watermark on a
so
legitimate site, or is the fake site watermarked?
okay, so our solution is basically built of few functionalities. Uh, One is watermark. Watermark that we develop, it's appears on the authenticated site, on the real one, right?
Very good.
And this is kind of providing the authenticity to the end user that when he visits the site, he's going to see something within that watermark which only he can recognize. That watermark is unique per each user. Okay, it does not go over the internet, so no one can intercept it,
Oh, so it's unique per
and
user.
it's unique per user,
Oh,
exactly.
that's interesting.
So it's unique per user. It resides only on his machine. It doesn't
Mm,
require to download or to install anything. It's all done
right.
automatically.
It's
And
agentless. Yeah.
yeah, and every time for me as the end user visiting the site, I'm going to see a small digital watermark pop up showing me a code and animation which only I can recognize. So this cannot be forged, cannot be copied or cloned, and hence providing me the authentication that I'm in the real site. Now, if I'm visiting a phishing site of the same domain, I would not be able to see the watermark because the watermark cannot be cloned. So for me, it's kind of a binary indication. Either I see the watermark or either I don't. If I don't,
Mhm.
I'm in the wrong place. Okay. So watermark is one level of detection and protection that we provide the customers, the end customers. But behind that, we have a series of detection and protection capabilities that eventually are going to, in one hand, report a lot of things to the brand. Let's let's pick up a few examples here. So if the bad actor going to clone the site of the bank is going to be notified in real time. Not
Okay,
only
so if ABC company gets their site cloned to another abccompany.com or whatever, then the original brand will immediately be alerted. Your site
exactly,
has been cloned.
exactly, and not only
That'll be
saying
very helpful. That would be very
not
helpful, I would
yeah,
think.
not only saying your site was cloned, we can say, okay, from what machine, from what device, and since we have kind of a device DNA um, technique behind the scene, we know each and every customer of the bank. So if this is the fraudster who is
Mm.
going to make that clone, we will be able to distinguish between the legit user and the bad guy. So this is one type of alert. If someone is going just to investigate the website of the bank, just investigating, we will detect this as well and provide this information to the bank. So we covered investigation, we cover cloning. Now let's move on next. Next is spoofing. So if the bad actor are going to create a real and publish impostor site of the bank, we will detect this as well in real time. But at this point, and that's the interesting part, at this point, we will also discover all the end customers that were exposed to the phishing attack.
So
Okay,
the okay, so the now how does it walk me through that? So you're telling me that the like if 10,000 of ABC Bank customers are phished and several of them have gone to this site, let's say 100 of them have gone to this site, you will be able to tell the bank these 100 went to the site.
exactly.
Okay.
And not only say this kind of after the fact, we detect this in real time.
No, immediately.
So
Right. Like
yeah,
100 people are have gone to the site in the last 20 minutes, right? Check this
exactly,
out. Okay.
exactly.
So the bank can
More,
not only be alerted that their site was spoofed, but that these customers that they know now to connect to, they can
mhm.
reach out to them proactively and tell
Yeah,
them that the site that you're on, you might still be on it. The site that you're on is not good. It's
yeah.
fraudulent.
So we have here a little bit of advanced technology as well. So the bank will not need to call the customer so to say that because we're going to alert the customer on the screen in real time. He's going to get a
Without
red
having an
alert
agent on the customer's.
without having an agent.
Okay, walk us through that, please. So
Okay.
what does a customer say? I don't need to know the technology behind it, but tell me what the customer experiences.
So the customer experience would be that he's visiting uh, an imposter site of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Once he click on the link and he opened this on his browser, he's
Mm-hmm.
going to be alerted immediately with a red alert on the screen telling him, hey, watch your warning message. This is an imposter site. Kind of stay away. You're not in the real bank here. At the same time, on the
That
same
is
time,
really helpful. That
but
was really impactful.
yeah, on the same time, when this is happening, the bank will get this alert as well and tell Yeah, we know that David was exposed now. David also saw the red alert. So we gave the bank the indication that you
That
also were alerted.
excellent. And that's all done in real time. And does that feed into the bank's SOC or the Security Operations Center? Does it feed into the bank's MSSP? Let's say they have an outsourced SOC.
Yeah. So both options apply.
It
So
all depends
basically,
on what the bank is doing, basically.
exactly. So we have our own dashboard, right? And the bank can use its own, uh, SIEM system if we
Hmm.
want, and we can inject the alerts from our system to their system. So we have all options,
So
but
the
not
logs can just feed right into the SIM that the SOC is doing,
exactly,
or if not, let's say it's a community bank and they might not have SIM or whatever, then
exactly.
they can still use your dashboard.
Yeah, exactly. But moreover, David, the one of the interesting thing here is that if we speak about integration, we also have an API, right? And this API is basically allows the bank. We're still kind of using the bank as an example, but
Yeah,
this applies to any organization.
sure, of course.
So this API basically injects some of the data or the relevant data directly to the risk and fraud system of the bank, right?
Ah,
So we feed this information in real time. So they know David was exposed to a phishing attack. David is in high risk. The backend system of the bank, the risk and fraud system are up to date now with this information, and they can take action immediately. They can say, okay, we freeze your account and we give you a call, say, we know for sure that you were exposed, right?
right.
We don't know for sure if you were compromised, but we're taking some precautions here, and proactively we're doing this and that. Okay, so by the way, this is a real use case. We
Yeah.
have banks that using this um, in real time, and we have this integration with the risk and fraud, and it's working very well.
So let's back up a second. So when was Memsico founded, and how did you? I know when you were a young boy, you didn't grow up thinking this is what I'm going to do. Like I'm going to create something that will help banks detect fraud websites because I can't believe I'm in cybersecurity because when I was growing up, it wasn't even a thing. It didn't even exist really. So how did your origin story happen? Like how did you
Yeah,
first get into technology and then discover a passion for this?
yeah. So good question. Basically, if we're looking at the management of Memsico, so we are basically four founders that founded Memsico 3 years ago. But this group of four founders, we've been working together for nearly, I believe, more than 30 years now.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so we all technologists. We all
Mm-hmm.
came from, computing institutions at the beginning. And ever since, we've been working together, and it's not our first startup that we established, right?
Got it. Yeah.
So you said, I don't know what's the age here, but if we go back to the 90s, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say you guys were together even before everybody was worried about Y2K, which is back when I got into it, and I was like, even when it was going on, I was still like, this is not going
Exactly.
to even happen. Can't believe they're paying us to protect them from Y2K, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So going back to the 90s, where cyber
Right,
term was not there yet, but
right,
security was.
right.
So we had a startup back in the 90s. It called Memco Software,
Oh,
and
okay,
basically we
interesting.
developed a unique security protection for open systems like Unix and Linux.
Ah, okay.
Um, to make the long story short, it was great success, and eventually Computer Associate acquired us for big money.
Yeah.
And ever since, by the way, more than 20 years, our solution is still being
Still being used.
um, used,
Wow.
and I think CA is selling hundreds of millions of dollars per year just on our solution. So
Unbelievable.
I'm saying this because this is basically our background. We came in
Mhm.
from the security world. We know that.
Yep.
And so going back 3 years now, and what's basically was the trigger to establish Mexico.
Mhm.
So we took a time, and this has literally happened. We took 6 months of studying and researching and meeting with CISOs, CTOs,
Mhm.
CEOs, all C levels around the globe, right? Mainly in the US, Europe, and other countries. A lot of people that we know from past experience.
Mhm.
And the thing that we actually met and discussed with them was what are the main challenges that they see in terms of impersonation attack on their brand. Okay,
Mhm.
because and we touched this at the beginning of the meeting today, but a lot of companies were focused on the internal security perimeter, right?
Correct.
You
They're
know
worried about
how
the anomalies and the threat actors when they get inside their network. That's where most of
exactly.
the discussion. But this is more the brand reputation and the ultimate customer trust, which is to me the crux of it all. This is why I was excited about having you on, because the brand reputation organizations today, and correct me if I'm wrong, based on all the research you've found too, and you've been in the industry for a long time. I mean, they'll spend a, most of their time, revenue, resources at building the brand, but they
Hmm.
will fly it without a lot of protection, right? and
Exactly.
they and they don't understand very often, partly because the cybersecurity community has done a pretty poor job of communicating to them,
Hmm.
right, that they are flying it at high risk, and then they get torpedoed, right? And not just indirectly by somebody breaching their own network, but by their digital footprint and their website and the brand jacking that occurs, because that is
Yeah,
much more common. And from a technical perspective, it's a little bit easier for threat actors to do. And that's where most consumers are being drugged into the mix, and that's where a lot of the liability is. That's where Memsco kind of came into play.
exactly. Exactly. And basically that type of information we gather from all the, research and interviews that we done,
Yep.
and we kind of pinpoint exactly what are the challenges. And one of the major one was, how do I know as an organization
Right.
whom of my customers were exposed, whom of my customers are at risk? How can I protect them? How can I know what is the magnitude of these attacks? So this is something that basically was the foundation for us to develop our platform, and ever since 3 years now, we have nearly 3 years now, we have about 50 customers already globally. We are nearly 50 people on board. We're still growing. We have two big venture capitals, that American ones that invested in the company as well, and we see, and we have a very, I would say, interesting roadmap going forward, because we have a lot of other things to add, and we're working to add it as we speak. So,
Well, that's fantastic, and it's really unique, because when you think about, this is not something in the toolbox of a lot of SOCs, and it
mhm,
is something that decision makers and people that the SOC team and the defenders need to report to, right? That the decision makers ultimately care about. right? The stakeholders at the end of the day care about the customer facing trust and reputation. And
Yeah.
so Memsco is kind of coming in from a different angle, right? Something that is very prevalent in the tens of billions of dollars a year, and saying,
Hmm.
here's another element of your threat and risk landscape that a lot of organizations aren't really addressing. So many of them are
Exactly.
focusing on the endpoint detection and the SIMs and things like that when they're getting into their network, because their site is hosted somewhere else, right? Their
Hmm.
site is hosted by some third party vendor or something, right?
Yeah.
But they're not realizing that risk.
Exactly. And I can, speaking about SOC in general, it reminds me that one of the, the biggest partners we have is Deloitte.
Ah,
Deloitte, yeah,
phenomenal. Yeah.
Deloitte globally um, acknowledge the values and the capabilities that Memsico can provide Deloitte customers. So Deloitte has MSSP and SOC as a service to
Hmm.
their customers, and basically Deloitte now is using our technology to detect, protect, and do actions for their customers, and this is going very well. In the States, in the UK, in Spain, and other countries. So Deloitte is really became a great partner in that respect, and we have more, by the way.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. And I could see you going through and Memsco going through various channels as well, like through the
Yeah,
MSSP channels, because
exactly.
I could see MSPs and MSSPs needing this to add to their toolbox of what they can offer customers.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
because
David, there's
it can expand far beyond the financial sector as well. I mean,
exactly.
manufacturing, retail, um, even small businesses could use elements of this, right?
Exactly.
Platforms like this.
Exactly.
Is this an offering that small business can engage with you on, or is it more at an enterprise grade level? Meaning, do you have a Memsico Lite for small
Yeah.
business? Like, is there?
So we do have.
Okay,
So we have
excellent.
customers that are very small. We have mid-sized customers, and
Yep,
we have enterprises, as he said.
excellent.
Because the solution is there for anyone. You can be a
Right.
small business, but you can be very vulnerable or very targeted,
Oh yeah,
uh, and 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 and
and that
because
can
of that,
totally destroy them, right? I mean,
exactly.
that's and the bulk of you know in the technology space, everybody always likes to focus on enterprise, but the truth is the bulk of people are employed by small to mid-sized employees,
Hmm.
employers, right? And so if we can drive some of these solutions downstream in size of the
Hmm.
organization, it can really help uh, American society as a whole, North American society.
Exactly.
So that's really good. This was really helpful. Talking about the dangers posed by spoofing attacks and um, the the window of exposure was really really interesting. You've really identified kind of three windows of exposures. Before we wrap up, can you reiterate some of those, highlight some of those? Like there's
Yeah.
three
So
windows of exposure that any organization with a website and a digital presence is going to have.
right. So David, before I'm doing this, if time will allows, maybe taking a couple minutes, we talk about detection, we
Hmm.
talk about alerting, we didn't talk about action. And
Yeah, let's
one
talk
of
about
the
the action. Yeah,
Okay,
what
so one
action
of
is taken?
the one of the actions that Memsico does or provide is that, let's take this scenario as an example. If the victim or the potential victim is being lured to get into a phishing site,
Right.
of the brand. And let's say he is ignoring the red alert, okay, and he's proceeding to the login page and he's going to put in his user credentials, username and password. So we have a very unique technology which is behind the scene. No one really can see this. And this technology, what it does on the enforcer side, is going to scramble and mark the credentials of the victim on the way to the fraudster.
Okay, so
So
hang on a minute. You're telling me I really like this. So the crime fighter in me, the Batman in me is loving this. So you're telling me on the fraudster's site, on the cyber criminals spoofed site, you have Mrs. Buttermaker. She's ignoring the red alert because her kid sometimes games on her computer and she's working from home and she's like, it's probably something Johnny did, whatever, and she still proceeds to put her credentials in. It will encrypt, essentially it'll truncate her credentials in between her entry of them and the receiving of it by the cyber criminal.
exactly. So not only,
Outstanding.
yeah, so
Outstanding.
so not only we are changing this on the fly, we're going to market it. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, fake currency bills.
Right.
Sometimes the police doing this marking bills
Yep.
that they can trace. So once the bad actor getting this marked credentials, he doesn't know that they are marked. He doesn't know that they were kind of scrambled or changed. He thinks that he did very well. He harvested many of these, and now he's going to try them on right away, or he's going to sell them on the dark web, and someone going to try this a month from now. Either way, once someone is going to try these credentials on the real site, okay, on the authenticated side, we will detect this. We'll say, oh, we know these credentials, we changed them. We know this marking patterns, and we detect this in real time. So we can also trace back to the bad
To the
actor as
seller.
well.
To the seller.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you even mark the faked credentials, the
Exactly.
truncated credentials, the encrypted
Exactly.
credentials, the changed credentials, so that
Exactly.
later, if they're sold, you can track them.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is a very, very powerful
Yeah, that's really
capability.
powerful. That's
Yeah.
really powerful.
And basically we protect the victim even without him knowing that we did it behind the scene, right? So the
Wow.
bank
Oh,
is
and
going to get
the
all this
hacker doesn't
information.
even the threat actor doesn't even know it.
Exactly. And time will not allow us, but obviously we have more functionalities, more capabilities other than that one. Um,
But
and
that's interesting. Look, I mean, every technology has features and benefits, and those are great and everything. But that's really powerful because
mhm,
it is a cause for wanting to have this involved in your overall risk management, in your overall cyber information plan, right? I mean,
exa-
this is really really key.
exactly.
Are you in this space? Are there larger brands that have something similar? Are you guys competing against, coming up
So
against the I don't know who would be in this space. I don't
yeah,
know if CrowdStrike or Sentinel One or any of those are in this space.
so the answer is no. We are
Lucky,
unique.
lucky you, because this is the first
Yeah,
time I've heard of this. So
yeah.
that's why I was like, I probably don't know, but that's why I wanted to ask.
No, we're unique. We have some patent registered as well. So we have, take the digital watermark as an example. This is unique
Mm-hmm.
to us. And we have a patent filed for this, and we have more. So this is really exciting, really promising, and going to the point of wrapping up the the cycle. So remember that detection, this is one part.
Mm-hmm.
Protection, this is another part, and providing action is the third part. So this is
Mm-hmm.
the let's say if we look at Memsico platform, this is what we cover: detection, protection, and action. But remember that in the life cycle of any attack, there are window of exposures that are not covered, and this is exactly what Memsico provide. The,
Right.
the, the, the protection on the end user in real time, no matter what. So
Yep.
I can tell you without disclosing obviously the name, but one of the banks that using us already stated that they saving a bit more than $1 million a month since they start using us because
Wow.
they stop compensating customers just because of that.
Right. Because it stops it.
Exactly.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really interesting. It's such a unique approach to the
Hmm.
threat landscape. You know,
Exactly.
that's very good. That's really interesting. Yeah, and account takeovers. I mean, um, let me ask you this: does this do anything? And it's fine if it's not. Maybe it's not designed for it. Like it doesn't solve every threat,
Hmm.
window. But does it? How does the, on the dark web, uh, which by the way, is right there, right? Like it's like if anybody's interested in, oh, the dark web is really mysterious. No, it's just on a
It,
computer right there,
it,
and that I'm pointing at.
it's behind
Like,
you. Yeah.
yeah, it's behind me. Like if anybody can access the dark web on there, there's all these marketplaces, and they sell ATM cards, fake credit cards, things like that. If somebody gets a ATM card and tries to use it, or uh, a somebody's credit card, does Memsco get involved in any of that protection, or is it not designed for that?
So, generally speaking, it's not designed for that. But mentioning credit cards, we do have kind of a solution for credit cards as well. So, but the usage of credit card online, right? Not
Right, correct.
not in the shop.
Right,
So one of the things that obviously hackers would do is that they will try to steal your credit card numbers
right.
and details. And so using the same concept of scrambling and marking the credentials of the user, we have the same concept for credit card number. So
Mm,
if the victim is entering a credit card number in, let's say, a payment page, and that payment page is basically a fake one,
right.
we will do the same action behind the scene. We're going to scramble and change and mark, and the this is, by the way, it's a bit more complicated because you need to keep a very there is a format for credit card numbers that you
Right.
need to keep using all the time. So we have this also developed. So the fraudster going to get sort of legit number of credit card, but this is not the credit card of David that just enter them into this page.
They'll get a scrambled and marked number.
Exactly.
Oh, that's fantastic. And in behind the scenes, without explaining the technical aspect, but it's tied to the main site of the site, right? Like abccompany.com. What you're doing is you're identifying whether that is replicated elsewhere online, right? So
Yeah.
it's really tied to what their online presence is.
Yeah, so we're not protecting customers and customers no matter what. We're protecting the customer in relation to the domain that we are protecting. So if we are protecting abc.com, as an example, all the customers of abc.com are the ones that we're going to be protecting, basically.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's phenomenal. Gideon and Hassam, thank you very much. We will have links to Memsico, and we invite people to check this out. And this will be something I know that we will see at the trade shows and in the industry, because this is really unique. It's one of those threat vectors that people don't always talk about, right? And you
Exactly.
guys have really identified. It's like you've been doing this. It's like you guys know what you're doing. So,
Hmm.
who are some of your other partners? Like, or are they, um, are they local in the U.S.? Did they come up
So
together
yeah,
with you? Are they international?
yeah. So basically, we are an American registered company. We have offices in different locations, but the um, American market is our main target market. We have Deloitte, we have other channels and partners in the US, also in Canada, also in Latin America. So we have now customers in Mexico and other
Phenomenal. Yeah.
countries. So yeah, so basically we are very well covered in that respect.
Well, that is great. Well, I guarantee this will not be the last time we speak. So that is really good. We wish you guys nothing but the best. And as you guys evolve, and as Memsico becomes a household name, or in bank name across the globe, I hope that you will come back and visit with us when you're too
Okay.
big. When you're too big, and Wall Street Journal is calling you, and you're too big, and you'd be like, "Yeah, you started on Cybercrime Junkies. Don't forget that."
Yeah, yeah. I
So
won't forget this.
this
I
is
won't
really
forget this.
good. So we wish you the best, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you for having me. It was
Thank you.
very interesting discussion.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal approach to a really important risk that organizations have today. So thank you for what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, that wraps this up. Thanks for joining, everybody. Hope you got value out of digging deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today. Please don't forget to help keep this going by subscribing free to our YouTube channel at Cybercrime Junkies Podcast, and download and enjoy all of our past episodes on Apple and Spotify podcasts, so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for joining us.